Okay, so good afternoon. My name is Mike Keating, and on behalf of the MGA, I'd like to welcome you to our market briefing, which is being delivered by Acumen Claims with the theme Unlocking the Potential of Indemnity Spend Control in the MGA Market and Leveraging Building Expertise. Before handing over to our presenter, Chris Turner, I'd just like to run through some housekeeping points. So please ensure your microphone and camera are off. If you would like to ask a question, please use the chat button at the bottom of the screen. Your questions will be answered during the Q&A session and will remain anonymous. If we do not get time to answer all those questions, then we'll circle back around with Chris and we'll address those post-event. The MGA's Programme of Learning and Insights has been accredited by the Chartered Insurance Institute for the quality of content and supporting materials, with CPD hours applicable if relevant to your ongoing professional development. The recording of this briefing will be available within your members' dashboard, and the PowerPoint presentation will follow post the event. Finally, and just as importantly, you will be sent a feedback survey. Please take the time to complete this, which should take no more than 2 minutes, as this allows us to deliver the best quality events to you, our valued members. Okay, so without further ado, I'd like to welcome Chris Turner, Head of Business Development, Acumen Claims, and look forward to his presentation. Chris, all yours.
Cheers. Thank you, Mike. Much appreciated. And thanks for the opportunity to present today. Been really looking forward to it. So yeah, as Mike said, today we're going to be looking at how we can leverage buildings expertise within the MGA claims space. And that's very much what Acumen does and bases our sort of value proposition around. So we'll look at that and compare it to traditional approaches. So, sorry, I'm just getting my screen ready. Yeah. Okay, so just for an introduction, so the MGA market is ever evolving. There are some key aspects which crop up again and again in terms of needing to be addressed, and supply chain is very much a part of managing that. So indemnity spend, reducing the volatility. I know that that's become a really big factor with all MGAs and insurers, particularly over the last couple of years. Retaining and pleasing customers and broker partners, obviously key to MGAs. So what we're going to explore in this session is how MGAs can leverage specialist building expertise to address your pain points, including reducing complaints and meeting consumer duty obligations. I'm going to compare a surveyor-led approach, which is how Acumen positions our services, with traditional adjusting approaches. And I'm going to demonstrate how MGAs can achieve improved reserve stability, lower costs, and greater client satisfaction through targeted expertise and innovation. So just our agenda here. So first of all, I'm going to look at the key learning outcomes that we're going to be looking at today, and we'll revisit them towards the end of the presentation. I'll give a quick introduction to Acumen, so you know who we are and what we're about. We'll look at the key challenges in property claims management. Then we'll look at some common FOS complaints and their root causes, and also some macro trends within the claims world, the larger sort of background trends. We'll look at how we address MGA pain points and industry trends, and that's going to give you a pictorial sort of view of the traditional property claims approach versus the surveyor-led approach. And then we've got an MGA case study, one of our clients that will look at what we've done for them and what their feedback has been. And then some key takeaways, and as I said, we'll revisit the learning outcomes, and then we'll have a Q&A. So these are the learning outcomes. There are 4 of them. So by the end of the presentation, you will be able to describe key challenges, so understand common pain points like delays, leakage, and customer dissatisfaction. You'll be able to summarize the different models, so recognize differences between surveyor-led and traditional claims management. You'll be able to outline the impact of expertise, so learn how specialist knowledge drives better outcomes. And lastly, you'll learn about optimizing processes. So we'll explore strategies to enhance efficiency and minimize costs for MGAs. So a quick introduction to Acumen. So I've been with Acumen just about 3 years, so it'll be 3 years in February. My background, I was a consultant before I joined Acumen, working in various supply chain areas of general insurers. And general insurance was very much my background. Before that, I worked for the major disaster restoration specialist Polygon. Again, most of their customer base is general insurers. So the MGA space was really new to me when I joined, and it's been a fascinating journey, learning about the London market and the MGA world, obviously helped by Mike and the MGAA, of which Acumen are a proud member. One thing that I identified when I moved to Acumen was that the model that Acumen were using for MGAs to this day was also really applicable to general insurers. General insurers tend to utilize adjusters solely on their claims, and I really felt a surveyor-led model was going to give real benefits to GIs as well. So 3 years later, I have developed relationships with more MGAs and also GIs. So Acumen is truly serving across the piece with the property claims world, and the model is really gaining momentum. So where did it come from, the model? So it's a chartered surveyor-led model, and our chartered surveyors are not RICs; they are Chartered Institute of Building. So they're all hands-on, time-served building construction experts. So all of our surveyors are directly employed and national, including Northern Ireland, and we take very seasoned building construction professionals, and then we Acumenize them essentially into a combined skill set, someone who can both validate the claim against policy and philosophy, and design accurate scopes of work on day one. And that's the key, that's the nub of the model there. You've got an insurance expert and a buildings expert, which is a very powerful combination. And we train our staff to validate internally. All claims are project managed to conclusion by our surveyors with the support of our experienced back office. So all decisions throughout the claim from start to finish are made by our surveyors. And our sweet spot, really, where we add the most value, is kind of between 10k and £250,000. That's the kind of bracket where we've had the most traction within both the MGA and insurance world. Under 10k claims from 0 to 10, they're pretty well. It's well thought out. There are platforms like CoreLogic. There's all sorts of going on there. We're not interested in that sort of large volume sector. It's very much this sort of larger and more complex claims that we're interested in. So what do we do? So we do technical claims validation for all perils, including subsidence. We do expert scope design. We also manage contents validation and replacement. We also handle AA and all aspects that you would expect for a claims management company. We have our own contractor network, which again are very acumenized in that they know exactly what our surveyors will produce for them, which is the scope. So there's a key difference between the way things are done traditionally in the industry, where the contractor scopes and the loss adjuster rubber stamps. Well, we don't do that. We impose our scope on the contractor. And we also, as it says there at the bottom, we manage client funds on some accounts as well. So what are the key challenges in property claims management? So I think, you know, the aspects within the 7 aspects in this ring really typify it. So inaccurate validation and scoping is a key issue that a lot of these will stem from. Indemnity spend leakage. So I mentioned before, you know, when contractors are free to scope and it's rubber stamped by the adjuster, there's not this sort of account, in our opinion, there's not the accountability or control. Reserve volatility, a key issue within the industry, particularly in the last few years as prices and supply chains have gone up and suffered. Claim cycle delays and customer dissatisfaction, these two things are very linked, as you will know. And also broker dissatisfaction, you know, MGAs are the broker relationships are absolutely key to MGAs, of course. And the regulatory and consumer duty landscape is always evolving as well, and certainly something that MGAs must address. But, you know, in our opinion, the first day one action, where there is inaccurate validation and scoping because of lack of buildings knowledge, all of these other things can stem from that in terms of problems developing. And this is where our model is designed around. You know, you get that right on day one, you get those ducks lined up, you get certainty and accuracy of those aspects, and the claim will flow a lot better with less problems. So FOS complaints and root causes. So all of the data from FOS is public domain. So I looked up you know, key FOS complaint types linked to MGAs and property claims. So there's 4 here. So inaccurate scope of works leading to disputes. You know, I think anyone who's listening who's in the property claims area will know that if there's disagreements about the scope, and there often is between policyholder and claims management company and adjuster and contractor, it can cause all sorts of complaints and delays. Delayed claims resolution, poor communication and customer service is a biggie, and unfortunately endemic within the industry, and inconsistent claims decisions. And if we look at some of the root causes of these, so, you know, lack of buildings expertise at the outset. You know, if you don't get the scope of works right on a valid claim, then it's going to lead to, you know, lack of a clear way ahead and disagreements. Multiple handoffs and fragmented processes, again, are unfortunately endemic often within supply chains, and it really adds up to delays and confusions. Delayed assessments, reliance on virtual inspections, there's a lot of price pressure within especially the volume property claims supply chain, and it means that virtual inspections by adjusters or surveyors is often the answer. But again, we don't believe that's going to help at all. It's just going to lead to confusion and poor communication down the line. And inconsistent claims decisions, lack of clear communication between all of the stakeholders involved. And there are macro trends at work as well. So technology and AI integration. AI is absolutely on the march, as you know, and you know, the likes of CoreLogic, Verisk, and Synergy, and lots of other players are really, you know, going to town on integrating AI into the way that claims are managed. And it's not going to go away, and it shouldn't do. You know, I think it's a fantastic tool. Customer expectations. there's ever more demand for faster and more transparent claims resolutions. People are time poor in the world that we live in, and they also want to communicate via digitally as well. I'm guilty of this completely. I do everything through my phone, you know, banking and insurance and you name it, really. And there's always, you know, increased scrutiny in terms of regulatory focus as well. Consumer duty is relatively new still, of course, and they haven't really got their teeth into the industry yet, and I'm sure that that will happen as we go forward. So addressing MGA pain points that we have looked at and the trends that we've looked at. So we've carefully designed our model around these industry pain points, focusing on reducing claims cycle, managing claims leakage, improving cost control, and enhancing customer satisfaction. And you know, we have a quite a large range of very loyal clients within Acumen, and our approach really reflects a deep understanding of the challenges that they face, and that's always a work in progress. So we look at traditional approaches to property claims versus surveyor-led model. So here's our traditional adjuster-led model. So you have three sort of key parties on a claim with any, you know, kind of technical complexity, larger and more complex claim. So you have the loss adjuster who will do the first site visit and validate the claim and make a reserve. If there's any complexity, it will be handed off to a surveying services supplier, and that surveying services supplier will hand off in a tender process to contractors who will scope up, submit upwards, and eventually those scopes will hit the loss adjuster's desk, and they will rubber stamp it or question it as appropriate. So this approach, this multi-party approach, we really you know, adversely affects the claims journey for customers. Just that process that I described of doing a tender process, etc., can take, you know, up to 8 weeks to occur, in which time, you know, there's lots of sort of claims leakage and opportunity for customer dissatisfaction as well. The initial reserve has to be essentially a guesstimate on that first visit, because the loss adjuster, though an insurance expert, does not possess buildings expertise. So we always, you know, say to people we engage with, you know, why would you send a non-buildings expert to a property damage claim? It doesn't make sense to us. And, you know, if the first reserve is a guesstimate, then it's going to be even more likely to have volatility and creep, in our opinion. And there's also risk of leakage with the traditional model as well. We believe, you know, contractors are scoping. As I said earlier, with our model, they don't scope. They do the repair based on the scope that we produce. So with the Acumen model, we have essentially one party who has the validation skill set, the surveying skill set, and also the contractor project management skill set. So there's no handoff to multiple parties. So you're saving time and you're giving the customer a better journey right from the off. Because our surveyors have deep buildings knowledge, they can do a day one validation and scope against the philosophy of the client and the policy. And also the buildings expertise means that the scope itself is reduced in quantum, because our surveyors know exactly how you get this building in a hands-on manner from damage to pre-incident condition, without replacing electrics that don't need replacing, without replacing sanitary goods, for example, that, you know, just need cleaning and don't need replacing. It really adds up to a lot of savings for our clients. And because of these day one actions, our surveyors can get early mitigation in motion really from day one. And it's a much more seamless experience for the customer. So this is a unique triad really of actions that a surveyor-led model can complete on day one. So they can validate the claim, they can repudiate the claim, and we do that face-to-face commonly where applicable. They can value and design the scope. They can talk about cash with the customer, so consumer choice, no problem. So round about just under a third of our outcomes tend to be cash. And because they've completed those two key items, they can appoint contractors and project manage the works right from the off. So you've got a real kind of concertina effect with cycle time. So the key benefits, we believe, of the surveyor-led model in claims management: reserve certainty, superior validation against philosophy, using the building's knowledge to interpret the policy, reduce quantum, reduce cycle time, improve customer satisfaction, and compliance with consumer duty. And the overall benefits that we deliver to our clients are superior customer experience, reduced indemnity spend, and significantly reduced cycle times. So I've got a case study here, which is a testimonial from one of our key Acumen clients. So this is Brown & Brown. We're sole supplier in the UK for Brown & Brown, and this testimonial is from Head of Claims for Brown & Brown, which is Colin Harrington. I know there are a couple of Brown & Brown people watching me right now, so thank you for this testimonial, Andrew and Simon. So I'm not going to read this out. You're going to be sent this afterwards, but I'll read out this bottom bit here. So it says, if you're looking for an agile, professional, quick, cost-effective, innovative service, delivering results for your customers and directly to the bottom line, then I cannot recommend Acumen highly enough. Acumen is the future, and at a time where alternative solutions, especially in the loss adjuster sector, are not delivering, Acumen will. So the key benefits that Brown & Brown are reporting is millions in savings. So over the 6 years we've worked with Brown & Brown so far, and Brown & Brown were an early adopter of the Acumen model. We've saved them. They report to us millions in savings. Large loss savings, so that we have individual cases on larger loss claims where savings have exceeded £100,000 compared to other solutions. A high repudiation rate, and we see this across all of our customers. Again, dependent on client philosophy, some of our clients policies allow for more repudiation than others. But Acumen achieved during 2023 a 21.8 repudiation rate for Brown & Brown, and that was significantly higher than the 7.2 rate that they had previously with adjusters. We also find that complaints don't rise when Acumen repudiates as well. In fact, they go down, and that's because we can do it on day one, face to face. Often it's a better customer service. We also guarantee work as well, so all works are guaranteed for 2 years, ensuring reliable outcomes for customers. So what's the industry saying about Acumen? So quite a lot in the last sort of 12 months. So we were very, very proud to win Service Provider of the Year 2024 from the MGAA. So last July we were at the conference, no doubt quite a few of you were there, and we were really proud to go up on stage and accept that from Mike Keating. We're also shortlisted in several categories for the National Insurance Awards in 2025, which is in March. So yeah, there's some real sort of traction and awareness growing within the MGA world for Acumen. So what are the key takeaways from what we've gone through? So early on-site buildings expertise is a game changer for MGA property claims outcomes, we firmly believe, and we see it with our clients. Surveyor-led models deliver measurable improvements. And, you know, we're your partner in optimising property claims management. There's some contact information there. I'd be very happy to chat to anyone who's interested to find out more. And I know that Mike is going to send across the presentation as well. So if we just revisit the key learning outcomes that we looked at the start. So describe key challenges. So understand common pain points like delays, leakage, and customer satisfaction. Summarize models, recognize the difference between surveyor-led and traditional claims management. Outline the impact of expertise, learn how specialist knowledge drives better outcomes, and optimize processes. So explore strategies to enhance efficiency and minimize costs. And that's the end of my short presentation. Thanks ever so much for listening. I'll hand over to Mike, but if anyone's got any questions, I'd be happy to answer, and if I can't answer them, to take away and speak to you later. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chris. Very, very interesting, very, very innovative way in terms of looking at sort of the property claims sort of process. Please use the chat button if you've got any questions. I'll kick off with a couple if I may. Chris, can you give sort of indication of, because obviously you've moved and you've articulated away from the traditional model. In terms of your discussions with MGAs and carriers, you know, capital providers, you know, have you sort of had any resistance to that? Because obviously the numbers are very impressive, but I just wanted to get your sense about how sort of quickly, you know, market is prepared to sort of adopt, you know, a newer approach as opposed to traditional.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Yeah, we've definitely had some resistance, and we still face resistance. What we find is when we're doing meetings with potential clients, it takes a few meetings and a little time for the model that we're presenting to click, in the sense that what we're offering, yes, we're adjusters, but we're not adjusters, and it's completely different model. You know, yes, we're surveying services, but we're not surveying services. So if you look at procurement, particularly for GIs, but not just for GIs, you know, for the larger MGAs as well, it's very much in kind of, there's a bucket for adjusters, a bucket for surveying services, a bucket for, you know, contractors and various other suppliers. And we fit into all of them and none of them, essentially. So it can be difficult to go through the procurement process. But once the penny drops, once we've had the opportunity to, you know, explain that it's just a completely different way of approaching things, it's very left field. Once the penny drops, we find that, you know, clients become sort of major fans of what we're doing, you know, because it's just really hands-on, essentially. So, you know, you've essentially got someone with adjusting type skill sets, but who is a proper buildings expert and can project manage contractors to completion with all the, you know, care and controls necessary to stem leakage and really just make decisions and get stuff done, you know. So no, great question, Mike. Definitely resistance, but it's things like this that hopefully, you know, will address that, and anything we can do to you know, just get the message across that there's other ways of doing things to the accepted norms is good for us.
Thank you. Again, you know, please feel free to sort of use the chat button. So I'll continue. So Chris, you know, your presentation touched on the acceleration of AI into the claims process. Now, there is some nervousness around, not just the industry, but certainly from a regulator that, AI could potentially, be used to replace what is required as a customer interaction. I don't need to sort of reference vulnerable customers in particular. Could you give your view in terms of whether you feel that pace is too quick, number one? Number two, that, there's a danger that the customer outcome, satisfactory outcome could be eroded for AI, or do you feel that the introduction of AI is at the right level in terms of being complementary to the process?
Yeah, no, great question. I think, I mean, firstly, the approach that we take is that we have a human being in the form of our surveyors visit every claim. And that's something that we just do, So what we say is that we treat every customer as vulnerable, essentially, in that they have an empathetic, experienced person visit them in the first instance. So that's certainly not something that we would ever look to replace with AI. I think in terms of AI, I mean, I use AI all the time. I use ChatGPT all the time. It's such an amazing tool. Apart from when it's down, actually, it was down earlier today. It had an outage, but it is just a tool, though. Really, I think there's an awful lot of hype around AI. But if you interact with AI and the most up-to-date AIs that we currently have, they're very useful, but they're really, the Turing test is nowhere near ready to be passed. And by the Turing test, I mean, there's no way that if you had a really long, in-depth conversation with an AI, you wouldn't know it was an AI, So I don't think that AI, there's a lot of razzmatazz around it, and some of the, the tech in the insurtech providers within insurance are rightly making a big deal about AI, but I don't think it's technologically ready yet to even think about taking over some of the roles that are rightly with human beings, particularly around customer service, particularly around empathy and hands-on. When someone has a property damage, let's say they have a burst pipe in their loft or the ceilings are down throughout their property. It's something that's physically happened to them in person. They need people and persons on site. They need someone to sweep out detritus from property. So I think there's a real place for AI with claims efficiencies, with diarising, with the back end of making both insurers and suppliers more efficient. But I think we're a long way technologically from having your friendly, sort of empathetic AI bot who can truly help a customer, whether vulnerable or not.
I buy into the concept. How do you report to your partners in general? And as proof of the concept, improved speed of settlements, cost saving, case by case bordereau. So I think that's more around the demonstration and evidence really of what you've sort of shared today.
No, I actually missed the first part of that.
Okay,
Sorry.
So the attendees said they very much like the concept which you've articulated, described in your presentation.
Yeah.
But their question to you is that how do you report to your partners in general?
Yeah.
And as of the proof of concept, improved speed of settlements, cost savings, case by case. So I think if I'm reading that right, the concept is well thought through, but actually how do you evidence, the things you described in your case study to the partners in general? I think that's the question. I've just been told that's right. I've got it right. So
thank you. So I mean, how do we report to our clients? So I mean, we work under delegated authority for one. So the DAs that we have with clients sort of vary really depending on the sorts of claims that we're dealing with them for. But it's not unusual for us to have a DA of 30k or 50k or in some cases sort of 75k. So a lot of what we're doing, when we first start working with a client, we really study the way that they want things very carefully and their claims philosophy, and we're able to do quite a bit of stuff under our own steam. We report. We have our own detailed report, which is both a report on the validation of the claim and if the claim is valid, the scope of the claim. So it's a powerful report that we would send on average within a week, and often before, often less than a week after the surveyor visits, in which the whole story is painted. Is the claim valid? What's the reserve? And the reserve is based on, an actual black and white scope. It's not a guesstimate. It's something which has been calculated by an expert. So it's very powerful. In terms of showing benefits more generally to clients, I mean, you can't always count on a client being able to sort of compare directly with an incumbent adjuster, for example. It's famously difficult to compare claims, isn't it? Because claims are often so different. But what we do is we're able to calculate some of the savings that we're able to make. So, for example, we know what the average sort of claim value would be for different perils across the industry, and when our repudiation rate is 10% higher than the industry average, we would be able to take that volume of claims and extrapolate how much we would have saved the MGA. Same with the actions that our surveyors take on site. So it's very common, unfortunately, for a less hands-on way of scoping, which is administered, by an adjuster and surveying services, to really sort of do a lot more replacement than we do. So, I mean, sanitary goods are a key one. You have a severe escape of water or a flood. We don't replace the sanitary goods in most cases. We restore and clean them and put them back in. It's porcelain. It's not something which is affected by water. It's the same with electrics. We don't rewire a property where it doesn't need rewiring, and we can tell, because of the technical knowledge our surveyors have, we can tell exactly on day one what needs doing and what doesn't. What needs demolishing and what really doesn't need demolishing. So it really saves a lot of money. The quantum is much reduced, and we can detail that to clients in terms of saying, well, we didn't do this, we didn't do that. We know how much that would have cost, and this is what we think you would have paid for that had someone with the level of buildings knowledge that we have not gone to site. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I'm pretty certain it does. I suppose it's a great question. I think the key is, and I think you have articulated, is to say, well, if you have a claim which has gone through the Acumen process, which you've articulated, and then you overlay, the same claim, but with, let's call it, the traditional process, which you articulated at the start of your presentation. I think what our members are particularly interested in is in terms of where those particular savings come through, and you've covered that in your presentation, and the cycle times, etc. Because ultimately all this leads to actually an improvement in the ULR, which clearly sort of Brown and Brown have recognised in terms of the long partnership that they've had with you. So I think certainly that was sort of the genesis of the question, in terms of overlay traditional and then again against Acumen, and then see what comes out at the end. And I think obviously for MGA members, it's all about delivering sort of underwriting profit. So I think exactly that sort of, Chris, and I think probably sort of as we go through sort of our partnership, maybe coming back with that sort of more examples on that would be very, very useful for our members, I think, and for themselves. Okay, any more questions for Chris? Okay, another question, if I may, Chris. So, did Brown & Brown see an uptick in renewal retention rates?
It's Colin Harrington from Brown & Brown. I can probably come straight in on this one.
Thanks, Colin.
Yeah, we did. And this is the interesting thing that Chris has highlighted regarding repudiation rate. Not only did we see a downturn in our complaints in the way it was delivered, but we also saw our FIFO rating linked into renewals as well jump significantly against the loss adjusting model, and it now sits at a very impressive 4.8 on our FIFO rating. Our same rating under loss adjusters was sitting in mid 3.5, 3.6. So again, we can directly link that into the service and outcome that we're receiving from the Acumen model, where we've moved away from the loss adjusting model in its entirety. And just one other thing I was going to pick up, if I've got the opportunity, Chris, not to step on your toes, is one of the key differentials for us with regard to the repudiation rate is the fact that Acumen will always carry out a roof survey on every single claim, where loss adjusters would turn up and stand at the side of the road, look up and agree to storm damage. And the best example I can give to you is we had a loss adjuster report stating that storm damage to the roof was £76,000. Asked for our approval to reinstate. We set Acumen out the following day. It was all maintenance and the claim was repudiated in its entirety with no complaint from the customer. So again, I think it's important to state that it's also the way they carry out their work. And one final differential for me is always around, we talked very much about scope of works here. They will look for the least intrusive way of drying a property out, for example, following flooding or escape of water. It doesn't always mean going in, hacking off the plaster, which unfortunately a lot of specialist drying companies is their first port of call. They will look at every way of not to disrupt the integrity of the structure itself. So all these things combined then lead to the performance. And in answer to your question, Mike, yes, a higher retention to our renewals.
Thanks very much, Colin. That's great to hear straight from a customer. Very, very useful. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so any more questions? We've still got some time, or I think there's a lot to digest there actually, because it is new. Well, it's completely different. Okay, so on that basis, then I'd like to, on behalf of all attendees and especially the MGAA, I'd like to thank Chris Turner for taking the time to talk to you all today. Very, very insightful and interesting presentation, very innovative, and again, thanks to Colin for sort of, again, with that endorsement, because, him and his team are right at the coalface, so that's great. So just before we finish, I'd like to remind you to complete our feedback survey, please, as your views are extremely important to the MGAA team. So thank you all for joining us, and have a fantastic afternoon.
Thank you, Mike. Much appreciated, and thanks everyone for listening.